The main reason why everyone is moving to Sandy Springs is because this city has the best condo living. This is not generally a suburb where you find families with two kids and a dog and a big backyard. Sandy Springs is more like the city where you find young professionals who want to be in an area with a good economy, or empty nesters who want to live in an area with plenty of things to do and community involvement. Which brings us to another reason why so many people are moving here, and it's because it's so close to the city of Atlanta. If you're thinking about moving to Sandy Springs or Atlanta or any of the suburbs, feel free to call, text, or email me anytime. Thank you so much to everyone who has reached out. I'm always happy to help. But the distance from Atlanta to Sandy Springs is very close. In fact, Sandy Springs, for the most part, is adjacent to Atlanta. So you technically could get from Sandy Springs to Atlanta just by crossing over the border. But to get from downtown Sandy Springs to downtown Atlanta would probably be about a 15 to 20-minute drive. So if you lived in Sandy Springs and were working in Atlanta, it would be a relatively easy commute, not like living in one of the suburbs and having to drive an hour to work. It'd be a much easier commute than that. And then also you would get the benefits of all of the things to do or the attractions that you would find in Atlanta, the restaurants and the shopping that you would find here. So being able to be so close to that while living in Sandy Springs is really a big draw for many of the people who live in Sandy Springs. Which brings us to the third reason why so many people are moving to Sandy Springs. The proximity of Atlanta and the growing economy means that there is lots of job opportunities in this area. The amount of employers and big businesses who are moving to Atlanta and Sandy Springs means that many people who are looking for work or who are being transferred for work are choosing Sandy Springs because of its proximity to those employers. When it comes to the suburbs of Metro Atlanta, there aren't a whole lot of employment opportunities in all of the suburbs, but Sandy Springs is certainly different. There are lots of big businesses in Sandy Springs and lots of jobs in Sandy Springs. So this is certainly one thing that earmarks Sandy Springs differently than the other suburbs of Metro Atlanta. Another big draw for people who live in Sandy Springs is the city center. Sandy Springs has a great city center with a huge lawn area for hanging out or throwing the ball or picnics. They also have lots of shops and restaurants all around this city center. When it comes to like downtown areas or city centers, Sandy Springs certainly has one of the best ones. In a minute, I'm going to tell you the fifth reason why so many people are moving here. But before we do that, you should know there are some reasons why you might not want to move to Sandy Springs. There are some downsides to living in Sandy Springs. So let's talk about those briefly. For example, schools. People don't typically move to Sandy Springs for the public schools. There aren't a whole lot of young families living in Sandy Springs, and the public schools are not great there. Typically, when someone is looking for an excellent school district, they move to a different suburb, not necessarily Sandy Springs. And then if you want lots of space between you and your neighbor, like you want a large lot size for your home, this is not typically something that you would find here. Again, this city has a lot of condos and a lot of new construction. Closer to the southern part of Sandy Springs is where you would find a lot of the newer construction. And with those new construction homes means that the lot sizes are much smaller. And then if you're looking for a suburb that is like super quiet and you're trying to get away from the crowds of Atlanta, Sandy Springs is not really the right suburb for that. This is a much busier city, a much more crowds. It's not quiet. So this is something that you want to think about if you plan on moving to Sandy Springs. The fifth reason why so many people are moving here is that there are a lot of outdoor activity options in this city. The Chattahoochee River, which is like the main river that runs through the state of Georgia, happens to go through Sandy Springs. This means there are a lot of hiking and biking, jogging trails all along the river, access to the river for fishing or for kayaking. You could swim in the Chattahoochee River. It's not very common, but something that is common in the Chattahoochee River is tubing. I'm not sure if they have this in other states. Maybe it's just a weird ass Georgia thing that we do here, but tubing is like one of those big round inner tubes. And so you go out with a group of friends and you put the inner tubes out in one part of the river. You bring a radio and some beer and you just kind of float down the river to the next place where you can get off. So you hang out on the river for a couple hours, get a tan, drink some beer, shoot the shit. This is what you typically do in the Chattahoochee River. This is what we call shooting the hooch. So there are really a lot of outdoor activities to be found in this city. Another big reason why so many people move here is because Sandy Springs is so centrally located. Especially if you are new to the area, new to Metro Atlanta or Georgia, and you want to get to know the different areas and figure out where the best place is to land permanently, Sandy Springs is a great temporary place. You can get all around the Metro Atlanta area easily from Sandy Springs because the Interstate 285 goes through Sandy Springs. Also, Highway 400 goes through the city. So there are some major roads that give access to the interstate system and access to the other suburbs of Metro Atlanta very easily. Also, while it's close to Atlanta, it also is close to the suburbs. Sandy Springs is kind of like the barrier between the city of Atlanta and the suburbs of Atlanta. So you can get to the city easily, but if you want to check out the suburbs and figure out which one is the best for you, it's easy to be able to do both from Sandy Springs. And the seventh reason why so many people move here is because of the amazing neighborhoods in this city. If you want a tour of the neighborhoods of Sandy Springs, check out this video where we saw some of the best neighborhoods of Sandy Springs. I'll see you there.